Hello YouTube, and welcome to part 2 of my top 25 cars, money no object, dream garage. And this is the top 10. Enjoy! Auto addicts. We're now in the top 10. Now these are in no particular order, apart from number 1, which is without shadow of a doubt my favourite car ever. But moving on to number 10, we're going a very different direction here. No real technical or engineering excellence. Styling is what it's all about here, and that is the 1959 Cadillac Eldorado Biaritz. Specifically the Eldorado Biaritz, just because of the extra chrome and the extra luxury and whatever, but even just as like the Series 62 or whatever, it is an incredibly flamboyant car. They are 225 inches long. The largest tail fins ever put on a car at 42 inches. Far and away the most outlandish of the American jet age influenced styling of the cars, started by Harley Earl back in '48 with Cadillac. Fabulous cars. The Eldorado Biarritz being the convertible version. There was also an Eldorado Seville, which was the hardtop, and the Eldorado Rome, which was the big super luxury 4-door sedan. But the Eldorado Biarritz, the car I would have, 1320 produced, a 390 cubic inch V8, producing 345 horsepower, but a very, very lazy engine. It's not a performance car as you would imagine, but a thing to behold. Adore them. Another shot. Number 9 is a car very much, again, all about the style. However, the story isn't quite so straightforward. But the car we're talking about is the 1964 to 1967 Gordon Keeble. Now, some of you may have heard of the car, some of you won't. Those of you who have heard of the car, the one thing you may well wonder is why the hell has a V8 fiberglass sports coupe got a tortoise as its emblem? Well, legend has it, and I'm not going to say this is 100% true because I wasn't there, but legend has it, on a press shoot, a pet tortoise walked into frame of the shoot, and either Jim Keeble or John Gordon, I'm not sure which one, picked it up and put it on the bonnet of the car. It promptly had a shit, and that stripped the paint off the wing. That, bizarrely, it just meant they decided to use a tortoise as the emblem for the vehicle. Some may argue that was a bad omen, but nonetheless. Had a 327 V8 engine, have a Chevrolet Corvette with the Rock Crusher manual transmission. 1959, John Gordon, formerly of Peerless, another failed British car manufacturer, made some great cars. The Peerless GT, based on a Triumph, is a lovely looking car. But anyway, also and Jim Keeble got together, hence the Gordon Keeble name. They got together in 1959 to start the Gordon Keeble company. The car was designed by Giorgetto Zagaro, built by Bertoni. Approximately 90 was sold at a price of £2,798, which evidently was too much because only 90 were sold. The company was sold in 1965 and re-registered as Keeble Cars Limited. Production did restart, but only for a very short time, ending in 1966, with another 9 cars produced. and a final example was built out of remaining spares in 1967. This brought the total production to just 100 cars, most of which do survive, I think partly down to just an incredibly loyal fan base and partly the fiberglass body. The 5.4 litre or 327 cubic inch V8 had a 360 pound-feet of torque, 300 horsepower, top whack of 140, 0 to 60 in 6.7 and 0 to 100 in 10 seconds. So it was a very rapid car for its time and actually quite unusual styling, which I think does endear it to a lot of people, myself included. Number 8 is also a vehicle with bizarre styling. Again, it is a vehicle I would have to have a replica of, and there is a company in America called Fiberglass Freaks that do the best replicas of these in the world. The car was based on a concept car itself, and George Barris promptly took said concept car and made it even wackier to produce the 1966 Batmobile. Now again, I'm not going to talk a huge amount about it because it wouldn't be that Batmobile I would obviously be buying. It would be one from Fiberglass Freaks, usually based on a Lincoln chassis, but just absolutely phenomenal replicas. I would dearly love one. Just can you imagine turning up to Tesco's in the Batmobile? Who wouldn't want to do that? But number 7 is slightly more realistic, and it is a car I have owned in the past and would love to own again. And that is the Rover SD1 3.5 SE. Being a 3.5 litre SE, it would obviously be Series 2 SD1s. But the SD1 themselves in Series 1 and Series 2 form ran from 1977 to 1986. It was Car of the Year in 1977, with altogether throughout the entire, 9-year production run, 303,345 produced. You could get them with a 2 litre 4-cylinder petrol, a 2.3 and 2.6 6-cylinder petrol, a 2.4 4-cylinder VM diesel, and obviously the 3.5 litre V8. I have had a 2.3 and a V8, and bizarrely, while most people lust after the twin plenum Vitesse or the Vanden Plas EFI, I want a 3.5 litre SE, because to this day I still maintain, and I've owned Jags and I've owned all sorts of cars, but the 3.5 litre SE Series 2 Rover SD1 I had was the most comfortable car I have ever owned. And the V8 soundtrack, there's nothing better than a V8 soundtrack. Styling very much based on the Ferrari Daytona. David Bash and Spen King, I think, were the main designers of the vehicle. But the Series 2 facelift came in 1982, and again, some prefer the older, some prefer the newer. I'm in two minds about the exterior. Interior, I think the Series 2 is just without question a far nicer place to be. The Rover V8 ones, they're not, again, the most powerful cars in the world, about 155 horsepower, around 197 pound-feet of torque, and they'd do around 130, 135 with a 60 time of around 7.8 seconds, depending on the specification and the age. But just, again, cars I absolutely adore. As I said, I've had a couple in the past. I've always promised myself another one, and very recently I come very close to buying another one. Had this whole COVID lockdown thing not have happened, I may have bit the bullet, but I didn't. So we'll move on to number 6. Now, number 6, I'm not going to give you too much in the way of the history of, because the car I would buy is a car that my father once owned, but I wouldn't leave it like that. The car is a 1976-ish Hillman Hunter Estate in metallic peppermint green. However, I would not leave the 1725cc 4-cylinder engine in there. Dropped in there would be a V8, probably a Rover V8. Line locks, posi traction. There would be, under the skin, it would be a very, very different car. A real burnout monster, something to take the boy racer meets and just show them up. It's just something I think would be hilarious. But nonetheless, we'll move on to number 5. And again, car I'm not going to discuss a huge amount about. Everyone knows all about them, but it is a Land Rover Series 2A, short wheelbase, 88-inch wheelbase, with a V8 in it. Again, I've owned Series Land Rovers. They're fabulous vehicles, but you can't have a conversation in them over about 40 mile an hour, and they don't go much faster than 48 mile an hour. So a V8 makes a big, big difference. So moving on to number 4. And number 4 takes us in a more oriental direction with the Honda Prelude Mark I, or SN as they're better known. 1978 to 1982. 2 engines available, the 1600 and the 1800. Weighed about 900 kilos. First launched in Japan in 1978. The rest of the world got it in 79. 313,000 made. Quite a rare car now. They just tended to rot away. And some would say they look a little bit like a coupe Triumph Acclaim, but I think they're a fabulous looking car. And just as a little tidbit here, it was the first Honda to be offered with a powered moonroof. There you go, now you know. So, moving on, staying Japanese, and a car that I remember from my childhood, a local garage to me was a Subaru and Isuzu dealer. And I remember them having a Subaru XT in there. Now these cars were built between 1985 and 1991, and they had no real market. They were a bizarre looking 2+2 coupe, but with adjustable suspension and 4-wheel drive. They were sort of an off-road vehicle. It was, you had all the gubbins underneath that you would have in the Brat pickup or the DL estate, but in this bizarre looking 2+2 coupe with pop-up headlights and the most incredible dashboard you have ever seen in your life. They came with 1.8 horizontal 4-cylinder or 2.7 horizontally opposed 6-cylinder engines, and just incredible cars. So, number 2. Now, number 2 is something even more bizarre, if you can believe that. They were produced only for a short time, 1967 to 1968. And they were made by the Universal Power Company of Middlesex, and they were called the Quasar Unipower. Now, these only had a top speed of 50 miles an hour. 10-inch mini wheels, used plastic inflatable seats, a glass roof, glass sliding doors, very much like a mobile patio doors. 13 were made. Had a 1.1 inline 4 BMC engine. But here's the bizarre thing, they were 64 inches long, 66 inches wide, a car that was wider than it was long, and 74 inches high. It was almost a cube, a glass cube with wheels. Just the most bizarre looking cars, especially with the clear plastic inflatable seats inside. It's just hilarious, absolutely hilarious. Only 13 built. I've never ever seen one come up for sale. I'm sure there are still some out there, but yeah. But that leads us on to number one. And number one, for anyone that knows me, this will not be a surprise. It is my dream car, a car I have obsessed about for as long as I can remember. And it is the 1948 Tucker 48. Not the Tucker torpedo, as a lot of people call it. The prototypes were known as a torpedo, but the production car never was. I could wax lyrical for hours about this car, but I will not bore you with it. If you want to know more about the car, Google it, please. It is a fascinating car with an even more fascinating backstory. There is a film produced about it, Francis Ford Coppola film. It's just yeah, an incredible car. Preston Tucker, he had a dream. Oh God, I sound like I'm making a speech here, but he had a dream of building the safest car out there, changing the way the automotive industry looked at cars immediately post-war. And he tried and he tried. He came up with an incredible car, had a third headlight that moved with the steering to see around corners. It was a rear engine car with basically a helicopter engine in it, because they couldn't make the original 900 and some odd cubic inch engine work. It was supposed to have seat belts, pop out glass windows, a safety cell in the front footwell. It's an incredible looking car, Alex Tremulous design. It really is just an amazing car. Unfortunately, before production could really get into swing, he was hauled up before the Securities Commission, lost his factory, and taken to court. He was found innocent of all charges. The story goes he managed to get 50 cars lined up outside the courtroom to prove he was actually intending to build the cars. They were claiming he wasn't. He was just selling franchises for a vehicle that didn't exist. In all, there were the 51 cars built, the 50 production cars, plus the one pre-production, known as the Tin Goose. Of the 51, 47 of them still exist. And they're now $2 to $3 million a time. But I really do urge you, Google them, watch the film, watch the documentaries. It is a fascinating car with a fascinating history. It looks incredible. It's just, yes. If you're going to buy me something for my birthday, which my birthday is in December, and there's also Christmas, I don't mind if it's a joint present. I would be happy with any of the cars on this list, but I would love you forever. And I would do all sorts of things for a Tucker. But yeah, before we get into too much of what I'll be prepared to do for a Tucker, we'll leave it there. And the usual thing, like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will catch you in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed this, and see you for the next one. Ta-da!